Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Grid Live Encore. I'm Ben Schneider alongside Brandon Crossland. Brandon, how's it going?
Going all right, Ben. My voice is kind of damaged with some chest congestion the past couple of days, but the way I've heard it, you're not doing so hot either. So, I mean, at least we can still talk. We'll make it through.
I don't know what I mean. I feel completely fine. I don't feel sick or anything. I just, over the weekend, lost my voice and started to go again during the wrap-up show yesterday, but I made it through. It's feeling a little bit better right now, so hopefully it doesn't go again during the show. I guess now we know how Josh feels, because Josh seems to lose his voice every week with the amount of work he does.
With Josh, it's a common occurrence. Yeah,
and I just have to ask before we get into it, you didn't have to watch the Leagues Cup final with your Nashville SC soccer team, did you? I know it was a heartbreaking ending for you guys, but
I heard all about it. I have a lot of friends that are really into it, but I couldn't even tell you what channel it was on. Honestly, it was Saturday, so I was doing other things, unfortunately. But yeah, I heard that was a big event there for Nashville SC, and I honestly, that's how much I know about it. I just learned about the Leagues Cup a few days ago, so.
Yeah, well, it's on Apple TV. You can get the MLS season pass, and I've really been getting into it. So Messi was doing what Messi does, and congratulations to Miami. I know my Philadelphia Union came up short. I'll say this, your Nashville SC team put up a heck of a lot better fight than our Philadelphia Union did in the semifinals. But
yeah, that's what I heard.
We'll leave that where it is. This is not a soccer show. This is a racing show, and we'll get into that here in just a moment. But first and foremost, I want to expand a little bit on what I talked about in my one shining moment time yesterday. It's not a shining moment, but this is certainly one shining person in terms of what he's meant to the sport of NASCAR over the last 2.5 decades plus. Tommy Baldwin, yesterday, shortly after the Cup race ended at Watkins Glen, announced this on Twitter. He says, "Today I post with news that no one ever wants to hear. I have cancer. It's treatable, but this week of racing will be the last for a while for the Tommy Baldwin racing team. Going to take a break and begin treatment to beat it into the ground. This is not a post for pity. I want to let the world know that if you don't feel right, go get checked out by a doctor now. Don't wait. If I can save one life by posting this, I have done my job. Never be scared to go see the doctor. It could save your life. Take the message and share it with those you love before it's too late. I will beat this challenge like every other. The grind begins now. Thanks to everyone for the support. See you all at the track as soon as possible. Tommy Baldwin Jr." And Baldwin's driver in the modifieds, Doug Coby, sent this out a few minutes ago. My car owner, crew chief, and friend publicly shared news about his recent cancer diagnosis. This is a reminder to all of us that racing is much bigger than competition on the track. It's about family and the friendships we create and our community. My thoughts are with TB and his family as he begins treatment, and I know the racing community will rally around him with nothing but love and encouragement. You got this, TB, and we got you. As far as my future competing in the remaining 7 events of the NASCAR Wheel and Modified Tour season, I have no comment at this time. Ask the important questions, not the ones that are irrelevant. And on that note, out of respect for Tommy Baldwin and Doug Coby, we will not speculate what this means for the future in terms of how he will finish his season in the modifieds. But Brandon, I know I was talking yesterday. I don't know about you, but I remember that team that Tommy put together at the turn of a decade when the recession was going on. And really, I think the first major start and park team that showed how that business model was intended to work. It was very difficult to make work, but Dave Blaney went out, had a couple strong super speedway runs of that Golden Corral car, and then Golden Corral signed on for the full season, and he helped turn that team into one of the most lovable underdogs in the Cup Series. And Tommy's still going at it in the modifieds, and it's been a fantastic crew chief, car owner, competition director, very involved with the sport, and just really shook me up hearing that news yesterday. So I know I speak for you and everybody at Grid Network when we say, get well soon, Tommy, and we hope to see you back on the track soon.
Yeah, it's certainly a tragic news to hear there, and glad Tommy Baldwin's able to come out and say it himself. And we're all rallying behind you, Tommy. We're praying for you, your family, and yeah, the Tommy Baldwin Racing. That you're absolutely right there, Ben. That's one of those iconic smaller teams that really showed up in those decades where we were kind of growing up, and really is iconic with the Golden Corral schemes, and it kind of formed that sort of like almost pre-charter time in NASCAR. It was an interesting time in the sport, and Tommy Baldwin a big part of that, and his driver Doug Coby there in the modified series. It's been great to see them continue on in different parts of the sport, and just tragic news there, and we're all pulling for you.
And I will tell you, there are two races that I would go back, if you could let me go back and change any two races from my childhood and change the result. I would give the Coca-Cola 600 in 2007 one more lap so that Kyle Petty could win in that Coke Zero car of number 45. But I would also go back, and no disrespect to the Matt Kenseth fans, there's a part of me that will still go to my grave upset, and I've said this on this network before, that Dave Blaney did not win the 2012 Daytona 500. Tommy Baldwin and that team put him in a great position when the Juan Pablo Montoya jet dryer incident happened. They were leaning on the backstretch. The track was on fire. It was the early hours of Tuesday morning. I thought for sure they were going to call it, but he, regardless, got his moment of the spotlight for his team and Ollie's Bargain Outlet, and unfortunately they restarted the race, and he had to pit. That was that. I think he ended up 15th that night, but, still, like I said, a team that had some strong runs and did a lot with a little at the turn of a decade. It's a shame that things didn't work out and they had to shut down the Cup operation or really scale it back. I know they've come back a couple of times as an open entry over the last few years, but like we said at the start, thinking of Tommy, really unfortunate news, and hoping for the best for him, that he pulls through this and we can see him back at the track and back on the modified tour as soon as possible. And I see Adam Lemmeries sharing our sentiments here. Loved your one shining moment last night, Ben, as someone who grew up in the New England area. Big prayers for Tommy Baldwin. Couldn't agree more. And good to see Matthew Owens in the chat here as well. Messi is inevitable. There you go. Like I said, thrilling final there. Looking forward to the rest of the MLS season as it gets back into gear here. But let's talk about the ARCA Menard Series. You want to talk about getting into gear. 3 races in the ARCA platform this weekend, and we will start with the main ARCA Tour at Watkins Glen on Friday. What a shocker. Jesse Verstappen takes yet another win here in the ARCA Menard Series. But it didn't look like Jesse Love was going to get there at the very end. Connor Zilic making his ARCA debut with a fantastic run. Looked like his sway bar broke. There were sparks flying out off of his car the last third of the race. Everybody thought he was done, but he was able to hang on to the lead for a long time. And then we had an incident involving Jack Wood. The rain came. That threw a wild card into things. And through all of that, he held on until the very last corner when Jesse Love put the bumper to him just a little bit, moved him up out of the groove. Love came through on the main straightaway and took yet another win in the ARCA Menard Series. But I think the bigger story, Brandon, is Connor Zilic. Are you surprised that he was able to hang on to the lead for so long despite that broken sway bar and all the conditions, all the elements being thrown at him towards the end of the race?
Yeah, that's amazing. That's a lot of, like, 36 laps to hold that long. That's incredible with the broken sway bar. That's a really important piece of the car, and that's kind of an understatement. So the fact that he was able to keep pace on a road course like that just shows the prowess of Connor Zilic. But that last lap, it was just inevitable. Jesse Love was keeping even better pace, and it was really noticeable once they got past the bus stop just how close he was getting to him. And it was that final corner there, the Marco Sambros corner, if you will, that really did him in. Just found a way to go around the track limits there and took him on the inside, kind of sort of nudged him into the wall. And Jesse Love getting his 8th, my goodness, his 8th victory of the season. When will this kid ever stop? Probably never. So another Jesse Love win, or Jesse Verstappen, as you say. That's a lot more appropriate as far as he's been going this year. But Connor Zilic, a lot needs to be said of that young man there as well. Great drive for him, and that victory was basically his, but it doesn't count till you get to the stripe.
Yeah, and a lot to say about Brent Cruz as well. We'll get into him here when we get into the dirt race that happened this weekend. Dale Quarterly, another top 5 for that guy, still out here in his early 60s doing what he does so well on the road courses, and he made an appearance at Springfield for a dirt race as well. As you see the rest of the results there. Not such a great day for Frankie Muniz. Had another mechanical issue take him out early, but I know he had a lot of fun in the dirt, and we'll get into that race here in just a moment. First, we had a West Series race this weekend as well. Sean Higurani picked up yet another win, and it's a close championship battle. You see Landon Lewis down there in 4th. He closed that gap just a little bit more with that win, so it's going to be interesting to see how that battle plays out. Certainly complete opposite to what's happening in the main ARCA Series right now, with Jesse Love just running away with it. We do have a pretty close battle shaping up in the ARCA Menard Series West between Sean Higurani and Landon Lewis. Also want to give a call to Tyler Reif as well, who's taken over Todd Sousa's 13 car. Sousa's moved into the 3, a second car for that Central Coast Racing team, and a great battle for the win with Sean Higurani on Saturday night. And I think proof that that team is capable of strong runs, and Tyler Reif is going to be a very strong young driver here in the West Series for the next couple of years if he can keep this up. But in terms of the championship battle, looking like it's going to come down to Higurani and Lewis there. So we'll see how that plays out. Now let's move on to the dirt race. And Brent Cruz, you see that name there again. He picked up a very impressive win. I believe the second youngest driver in the history of the ARCA Menard Series to win a race behind only Ty Gilliland. So a great job by Brent Cruz there. And you see Jesse Love. What is this, third place? Who is this guy here down there for Jesse Love? Still another podium finish for him, and obviously extending his championship points lead over Frankie Muniz there. I guess if you want to be technical, Andres Perez de Lara closed in a little bit by finishing second, but he's going to need to do a lot more than that if he wants to steal this championship from Jesse Love. I think you can just about start engraving the trophy for Love there. Another strong run for him on the dirt. Good to see Ken Schrader out there as well. And Frankie Muniz, I mean, you want to talk about things coming full circle. Think of one of Frankie's first experiences in this sport of a 2001 Daytona 500, getting Ken Schrader's M&M's jacket. Now here they are in 2023, racing together in the ARCA Menard Series. Just so cool to see that. Taylor Reimer as well, making her debut, finishing strong there in an 8th place finish, completing all the laps there. Dale Quarterly had another strong run going as well until he hit the wall, so an unfortunate ending for him. But Brandon, I got to tell you, I don't know how you feel about having or how you would feel if you were on one of these teams traveling from Watkins Glen to Springfield for a dirt race in the span of just 2 days here, 2 races in a 3-day weekend. But I'd imagine it's got to be very stressful for these ARCA teams trying to make that turnaround.
Yeah, especially with the ARCA teams. It's not a full-fledged operation like we think. So, most of them anyway. There's, the few elite, of course, that make their way into those scenes. But yeah, that's quite the haul, and for these teams like that makes it even more of a spectacle that they're able to show up and get all unpacked and ready to go in that short amount of time. I see that name Brent Cruz, the winner at Springfield, and I think about Bob Pockrass's list he put out this weekend of his 10 biggest up and coming drivers or something like that, or his. There was a certain way of putting it. He
usually goes down to like the top 20. He's got his eyes on quite a few drivers. Yeah, it's
like his draft list or something. It has some weird like sports like name like that, and a lot of people were wondering where Caden Honeycutt's name was. They're like, "Where's this guy? Where's this guy? Where's this woman?" But yeah, Brent Cruz able to make that list. That's pretty impressive coming from Bob Pockrass.
Yeah, for sure. And good to see Kobe Lambeth from Grid Tonight, our own Kobe Lambeth in the chat as well. Nice drive by Schrader last Monday night, winning the Pinty Series race on dirt. Absolutely. A great run for Kenny Schrader there. And then ran SRX and ARCA later in the week. So
he's a busy man.
Yeah. You want to talk about somebody else in his 60s like Dale Quarterly, still going strong and running all these races here. Excuse me. Great stuff by Ken Schrader this past week, really, when you take it back to the Pinty's race as well. So thank you, Kobe, for bringing that up. We'll get to your other question here in just a moment. I see Casey Campbell here in the chat as well. 2 names you want to keep an eye on are Brent Cruz and Connor Zilich. These kids are good. I think this weekend certainly proved that. And Adam, another good point. Bob Pockrass, A+ for his pit road debut for broadcast. I loved seeing Bob out there doing that. I know it's not quite his element. I know he said he was a little bit uncomfortable and a little bit nervous doing it, but it's something he encourages young, aspiring broadcasters and journalists to do. Get out of your comfort zone and time to live by his own rules there and do that for the ARCA race. And I think he did a very solid job for somebody who, again, is used to breaking news on Twitter, getting interviews in the garage and in the media center. Very different to do that live in the moment on pit road. I thought he did a very solid job on the broadcast on Friday. So let's talk about Kobe's other question here. We've seen Connor Zilich have success in Mazda MX-5 Cup competition. What are your thoughts on the Mazda MX-5 Cup test at Martinsville? Potentially an iRacing dream may become a reality. Brandon, I've got to confess, I don't know too much about the series. I've seen some of the finishes circulate on social media. I know it's a very exciting series that they run there. And again, I mean, you want to talk about an iRacing fantasy. I think I heard Dale Jr. might even be testing one of these. And we know how heavily involved he is with iRacing, obviously, and what he's meant to that program. But I mean, there's a lot to try to unfold here. It's kind of surreal that we're talking about this. Then again, we were at North Wilkesboro, whatever it was, 3-4 months ago. So I guess nothing's a surprise at this point.
Yeah, when you're talking about things that are coming from the iRacing world, that's a little bit more around my wheelhouse. The 24 hours of lemons there's some sort of event like that. It was started by a guy named Mooncar, and he's known for his outrageous play-by-play that would never make its way anywhere near network television, but that's what makes it hilarious sometimes in these outrageous scenarios. Gets actual drivers involved in it from time to time. But yeah, they did a 24 hours of just crap cars around Martinsville, and that really took off. It was, stuff that came out of COVID time and all that. But it's not that bad of an idea as you think. Mazda MX-5s at Martinsville. I saw some video today from Matt Weaver, who made his way out there to the test, and he was, kind of looking at the banking there, the slight banking that's at Martinsville Speedway that might help these MX-5s out. And he said in his own words that it might be more of like a next-gen late model car.
Yeah.
In a few years' time, give it a chance. I like these MX-5s. They seem to be on the cheaper side as far as racing goes, and kind of becoming that kit kind of perspective, and easy for teams to acquire compared to other forms of motorsport. That I think it's going to do really well. And yeah, Casey thinks so too. I think that's a great idea, and it started more as a meme, but I think it's going to end up being something that might even be something that Cup drivers may want to come down and try, or they might throw it into the Martinsville weekend. Who knows?
Yeah, I think Travis is his real name. I forget his last name, but I know he goes by Moonhead online. Mooncar is the racing series that they run. It's wildly popular, and yeah, I mean, I can't really even think of the words that that this is a real sentence we're talking about here. Mazda MX-5s potentially coming to Martinsville, but then again, like I said, we just raced North Wilkesboro, so who's to say iRacing dreams can't become a reality here in 2023? It's going to be
they are happening a lot more these days than ever before. So give it a shot.
We'll keep our eye on that for sure. All right, let's talk about the Xfinity Series race, and this finish I think certainly fired up a lot of people on social media. Not just because we had a couple of Cup guys back in the race. I suppose it's a good thing Josh is off again tonight, because he wouldn't be happy if you had to talk about Ty Gibbs and Kyle Busch once again. But you see, Ty Gibbs certainly didn't get the finish that was indicative of the way he ran. Sam Mayer picked up another win, his second in the last few weeks here, both on road courses after he picked up the win at Road America. But a little bit controversial how he got it done. So, Brandon, first question straight off, was Mayer's move on Ty Gibbs fair or foul?
It's such a cut and dry question, isn't it? I have too many thoughts about this, and it's hard to boil it down. But when you look at it objectively, Sam Mayer's wheel hop does not, at the end of the day, was that really a wheel hop? I don't know. The way he sounded on the radio before this restart, he said 10 explicitive 4 after what his crew chief gave him there. So basically, I think that was like a premeditated murder kind of thing. Like, he decided wholeheartedly before that restart what he was going to do. But I also think the Wisconsin driver is smart enough to mask it in such a way where maybe he won't get penalized for intentional wrecking. And so that's kind of my theory of what happened there into turn one, the fake wheel hop. And so he can go into the interview and kind of shrug it off, like almost apologize for it too, to save face. But that's not the Sam Mayer we heard on the radio. And I think that's actually what his intention was. Like, okay, I don't think non-Xfinity drivers need to be winning these races, is basically what we got from him in post race. And as much as you and I both agree with that, because that's kind of what we talk about a lot with the Xfinity Series, Cup guys coming in and taking away all the glory, and like they shouldn't really be there in the first place. And Josh talks about that too. But Ty Gibbs is 1 year removed from the Cup, from the Xfinity Series full time, and he was the champion. So it's not too far away. Just a year out. I don't feel as bad as if we talk about that too a lot. I wouldn't feel as bad if it's him as much as it is Kyle Busch. But you stay consistent, and I'll leave you to that. Did I enjoy it as just watching it? Yes. Do I think it was wrong? Absolutely. No, that was bad.
Well, you know I stay consistent. I was upset when Ty Gilliland won the Knoxville truck race last year. He was a Cup rookie. So I don't care who it is. If you're running for Cup points, I don't want to see you in Xfinity trucks. I don't care if you're Kyle Busch. I don't care if you're a rookie. I try to stay consistent here on this show. So Ty Gibbs, I got to admit, didn't love seeing him in the race to begin with. Don't love the fact that he can get around the loophole because he is a rookie. He's not capped at the 5 race limit that guys like AJ Allmendinger and Kyle Busch are. That's why Allmendinger was removed from I guess he was on the entry list because it helped with the metric or something. There was another weird loophole that colleagues seemed to be able to find a workaround there. And then Kyle Busch obviously ended up driving the race. I guess he had a start in hand because he didn't run the Charlotte race because both got postponed on Monday and he wasn't going to do 900 miles in a single day at that point. But regardless, I don't have too much to add other than, I mean, we'll get into it a little bit more here with Ty in just a minute, but when you look at it objectively, I'm not a fan of the move Sam Mayer pulled off, but this will lead us into the next question here, I suppose. I can't say I have as much sympathy as I would have for really anybody else in the field based on what Ty Gibbs did to Brandon Jones last year at Martinsville. And I think, to your point, Brandon, even more blatantly than Sam Mayer did, because at least Sam Mayer could make the argument, maybe you could say it was a bit of a wheel hop and maybe that didn't leave him with 100% total control of his car. Whereas Ty Gibbs last year, I mean, it was clear, it was blatant, it was obvious. It's all day there. So does Ty Gibbs have any right to complain given what he did to Brandon Jones at Martinsville last year? Is this a situation where if you can dish it out, you have to take it back?
I mean, I know NASCAR is going to have their revenge. They're going to do that all day long. I'm not. It's not what I like to do. But does Gibbs have any right to complain? Sure, I guess he can do that. I don't think he does, but he can do that because he's Ty Gibbs, so he can do that. But I think the most positive thing that's coming out of this for NASCAR as a whole is that Sam Mayer and Ty Gibbs, like we can manufacture rivalries all day long, but Ty Gibbs and Sam Mayer actually don't like each other. They've been racing each other their entire lives, and they really don't like each other. It's pretty evident. They got real beef, and that's really fun for us to watch. And maybe when they're both, hopefully they'll both find their way to Cup, or they'll have a lasting rivalry here in the Xfinity Series that we can mull over and find a saga to be born, a Earnhardt versus Gordon, if you will, but a little more. Well, I don't know. You can't really compare it.
Yeah. Well, with all due respect, I know Ty Gibbs is the defending champion, or the reigning champion, I should say. He's not defending his championship, but I think he's got a long way to go still. As talented as he is at such a young age. Maybe we hold off on the Jeff Gordon or Dale Earnhardt comparisons for at least a little bit there. But I will say it did kind of puzzle me. And this goes back to the point Matthew said in our chat last week. Every time you feel like you're coming around on Ty Gibbs, you maybe start to like the kid. He does something like a burnout in front of the field, or an interview like he gave this weekend where he mentioned, congrats to him on getting his second win. I wish I could have gotten my 13th. Or, I'm racing on Sundays, he's racing on Saturdays. Like,
the passive aggressiveness in that young man is getting me. And also, yes, Matthew Owens, this last comment here, don't try to complain. He races on he races on Saturdays. I race on Sundays. Just cheap shots, and he knows exactly what he's doing. It's cheap shots. They're ugly, and they both look like dummies out there saying these things about each other. Who actually was mature here? Neither of them. They both lost, but we won because it was a good show.
Yeah, well, that's really ironic. The last part of that chat message there, like, Ty was there racing on Saturday as well. Why was Ty there racing on Saturday? Was it to gain more experience?
Right.
Because he's still young. He's still trying to work. I mean, he's in the Cup Series.
I didn't see him win Sundays. I didn't see him race near the front in Sunday's race. He qualified up there, but I didn't see him stay up there all day long.
Yeah, he's got a long way to go himself. Even though he's there, he's in the series, and Sam Mayer isn't. Maybe Sam Mayer will be there next year or a couple of years down the road. Who knows? But yeah, I mean, that was more my problem with Ty Gibbs. Like, does Ty Gibbs have a right to complain? Everybody has the right to say what they want to say, right? You can say whatever you want to say in your interview. You just have to deal with the repercussions of how your words are going to be perceived by the audience and by your owners and by your sponsors and all that stuff. Again, when Ty Gibbs is doing it, it comes off as more than a little bit hypocritical, I think, because it's not just what happened in Martinsville in the fall last year. It's also what happened in Martinsville in the spring last year. I think that was Martinsville, right? When
Right.
Gibbs and Mayer really got into it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not the first time Ty Gibbs has ruffled some feathers in not just the Xfinity Series, but the ARCA level as well. So, that was more my problem for me. It's that it was the passive aggressiveness, like you were saying, Brandon, of, taking these cheap shots at Sam Mayer's win record when, hey, the vast majority of these guys here on this results list to our right, they would love to have 2 wins in this series. Most of them can't say that. Sam Mayer is on a path to a very successful career. I think if he can keep this up and if he can mature enough to be able to do this on Sundays a few years down the line, I know he hasn't had the, record-breaking success that, maybe his teammates have had, such as Justin Allgaier or some of the other guys that have come up through junior motorsports over the last couple of years. But he's had a good couple of years. He's done very well in that car, I think, all things considered. It's easy to forget just how young he is as well. So I think he's got a bright future ahead of himself. I didn't really appreciate the cheap shots that Ty Gibbs took in terms of his wins record and, not racing on Sundays. Like, Sam Mayer was born in 2003. I think even if he had the skill level and talent, I think he very well might. There aren't very many people born in is Ty Gibbs, I think, the youngest driver in the Cup Series right now? He has to be, right? Born in 2002. He's only got a year on Sam Mayer. So he's basically, Sam Mayer could be in the Cup Series next year. They'd be on the exact same career path. So
yeah,
I didn't really get that.
Yeah, just a bunch of immaturity going on, and they both have a lot of growing up to do. And we're just, unfortunately, we're witnessing really young people become successful in really high caliber series. And that's just something that we haven't seen too much of in decades past. And maybe if we did, we would have saw more immaturity back in the 80s and 70s. Can you imagine 16, 17-year-olds from the 70s making their way out into the big time? I mean, but we're lowering the age as we've gone on, and I think we're starting to see what that looks like.
Well, I will say on that note, just to give a side note here real quick, and then we'll talk a little bit more about Sam Mayer before wrapping up the show. I did watch the 1959 Daytona 500 on the NASCAR Classics page, which just launched this week. And Lee Petty, of course, won that race. There's a very young Richard Petty that was in that race as well. It's so interesting to go back and look at Richard Petty when he was first starting out. I think he was 22 or 21 and about to turn 22 in that race. So younger than you and I are right here, right now, Brandon. Kind of crazy to think of it that way. But, you've always had some guys that get started that young, some people who are born into racing families that, have those connections that get those opportunities a little bit sooner. But, it wasn't uncommon. I mean, Josh Berry's going to be a 33-year-old rookie next year. That was not that uncommon back in the day, especially when, the feeder series came up and you had to work your way up through the ranks there. And, it wasn't usually nearly as fast of a process as it is today. And I think drivers raced a little bit longer as well. So maybe their career in the Cup Series was, the career time span was about the same as it is now, because they get there sooner, but they also retire sooner. But, just interesting to look back on that, because we always talk about how the guys are all so young nowadays. But, Richard Petty was out there when he had just barely turned 20, 21 years old as well, getting his start. So not completely unprecedented, but there is obviously a lot more of it nowadays than there used to be with the guys in their teenagers and early 20s. And you're already talking about maybe putting them in a Cup car. There you go.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Sam Mayer a little bit more here before we wrap up. Brandon, like I mentioned, his second win in recent weeks. Both came on road courses. So do you take this as Sam Mayer's really starting to come into his own on the road courses, or do you think this is a bigger sign of success that maybe he could be a championship contender when it comes down to Phoenix at the end of the year?
Yeah, I honestly think this is just a road course thing here for Sam Mayer, just a road course fling. Road America and Watkins Glen, that's two big tracks to put on your resume. But I think as far as the championship goes, going down into it, he'll do well with points, but I don't think he's going to win his way into any of those rounds. Now he could go out and prove us wrong. We'll have to see, but I I just don't have any solid evidence to think that this is a full all around sign that he's a championship contender. But he's definitely showing that for the the majority of the places we go on the schedule, he's got a really good shot to take the win next year.
Yeah, I would say I'm not sure he can pencil Sam Mayer into the championship four just yet. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets there because I know he certainly has a good team and good equipment. But I think but let's look at this as a road course thing for now. I think that's certainly his strength at this point in his career. Not to say that he couldn't win on an oval at this point. I wouldn't be surprised to see that either. But I don't know if we're talking about a junior motorsports car winning a championship, I don't know if Sam Mayer is the one to look at just yet. I think despite the fact that Josh Berry hasn't won a race yet, I think that the veteran in him might come out there, and Justin Allgaier being the same way. You can never count him out of a championship four fight. I think that those are probably the two you're going to look at before you look at Sam Mayer just yet. But then again, it's a crazy, chaotic format, so you never quite know what you're going to get. Maybe Sam Mayer could surprise us.
Daytona.
Yeah.
There you go.
A couple more comments from Matthew here before we go into one shining moment. It's also really hard to take Ty seriously when he says this kind of stuff about Sam Mayer or whoever else about how they aren't in the Cup Series when Ty's path was made much easier by his name. Matthew, I wasn't going to go there, but you're not wrong. I think it certainly hasn't hurt Ty's path to the Cup Series. And, certainly when Kyle Busch, it was becoming clear that he was going to move on to RCR next year, certainly opened up the seat for him and very easy for him to step into that.
When you come up in a path like that, you have to be nothing but humble or you're going to be seen as a jerk. And I don't think anybody or not enough people were giving young Ty Gibbs the memo that, look, buddy, you're going to have to put on a face here. And no matter what you're feeling, you need to at least portray yourself as thankful and humble, or people are going to write you out.
Yeah, for sure.
As the grandkid, Yep.
And one more from Matthew here. I struggle to trust junior motorsports this year. They've been tripping over themselves all year long, even with the veteran Allgaier. Still go back to the season opener. They were running second, third, fourth, and fifth in the closing laps at Daytona. And when you're in that good of a position to not come away with the win, much less have multiple cars fall out of the top 10 even, they really fumbled the bag there. Unfortunately, maybe that set the tone for their entire season here as an organization. They've not been terrible, but certainly haven't lived up to their standards of what we know they can do with multiple championships in that organization. Not sure that they're the favorites at this point this year, but again, we always make that point with that format. You just have to get to Phoenix, and then you have one good race. You win that race, you're a champion if you're in the championship four. So we'll see what happens. But as of right now, I'm not sure I necessarily trust that team either.
Yeah, it's been pretty bad with the absence of Noah Gragson, and I know that's a whole rabbit hole, but I'm just saying Xfinity last year, without the absence of Noah Gragson from last year, JRM has taken a drop. And I think you have to look at how successful they were last year and to compare it to this year. It's an obvious big drop in performance, but there's been shines of greatness here and there. And of course, Josh Berry may be having his eye too much on what's happening next year to really be giving it his all this year.
Yeah, you want to talk about a rabbit hole with the rumors that 2311 representatives might have met with Ford, and what does that mean for the Cup seat that was just opened up by what's going on with Noah Gragson and how that fits into the whole Toyota world and everything. That's we don't have time for that here tonight. I think we could be here for another hour just on that subject alone, but going to be very interesting to see how those pieces fall into place here. I think, I said it last year, was the silly season I can remember, but
for sure,
we might give it a run for their money again this year with all the pieces that still have to fall into place. We'll keep our eyes on that going forward. In the meantime, Brandon, what's your one shining moment from this past weekend that we just saw here in the world of racing?
Sure. Before I cough my head off here, I need to keep muting the mic to save you from your ears. I need to start picking one more often. I've got three again for some reason. Kevin Harvick, since I'm not on the Cup Series shows and wrap up and all that, Kevin Harvick snuck his way into the playoff picture, locked himself in just on points. So that's a big one shining moment for me, especially in his forever season last year with Kevin Harvick. My favorite scheme of all time of his is not the 01 scheme. It's the 2002 scheme where it was kind of like trailing on the back before he got all the spikes on there in 2003. That's just a side note. Also, Parker Kligerman put up a good fight at Watkins Glen. Just want to give another shout out to him. The win is coming at some point, but he's done a really great job of being a broadcaster and then being a racer and keeping those worlds separate. I think NBC has helped him do that too, and not paying too much special attention to him. Although they did a piece on him, I think they've been keeping that separate. And also, Adam already talked about it in the comments, but I put them in my one shining moment too. Bob Pockris, what a great debut there from pit road. Absolutely A+ for that pit road debut. And Bob, if you're listening, if you ever listen to this, you've inspired all of us to launch out into our uncomfortable zones in the world of broadcast and media and do things we're not comfortable with. And I gotta say, if you are a broadcaster right now and there's an opportunity that you're facing that you have no idea what to do with it or are really uncomfortable, do it. I mean, you're not going to grow until you go into something like that you're uncomfortable with, and then one day you'll be comfortable with it and you might really enjoy it and you might be really good at it too. So that's a big inspiration there from Bob Pockris, all those one shining moments.
All good moments indeed, Brandon. I want to mention again, I know I talked about it very briefly during the ARCA segment going through the dirt race, but I want to give a call to Frankie Muniz. I know that there have been some rumors this year that he might have to scale back to part-time or still looking for funding for that car. Maybe the dirt races were going to be the ones that he skipped because of his lack of experience there, but they made that turnaround from the Glen despite having those issues at Watkins Glen. They made the turnaround to get to the dirt track on Sunday, and you see him there in 7th place right behind Ken Schrader. And again, it's just amazing how Frankie's career and life in this sport has come full circle. If you think back to the 2001 Daytona 500, Frankie Muniz got a jacket, an M&M's jacket from Ken Schrader, who drove the M&M's car at the time. And here they are 22 and a half years later, competing together on a dirt track in the ARCA Menard Series, and both having very solid runs. And Ken Schrader still out there doing what he loves so very much. Frankie Muniz trying to work his way up through the ranks. It's great to see that. Great to see it come full circle, and great for both of them to have top 10 runs on Sunday in the Dutch Boy 100. That's my one shining moment to both of them for continuing to fight hard on the track. And want to thank everybody as we come to the end of our show for watching our show tonight. If you liked what you saw, follow us on all of our social media platforms: Twitter, I guess that's X now, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitch, LinkedIn, Threads, and most importantly, right here on YouTube. Join us on our journey to 1,000 subscribers and beyond. Special thank you to our Patreon supporters. I apologize, forgot to throw this up at the beginning of the show. Colin, Deschelle, Mark, Robin, and David, your support means the world to us. If you really liked what you saw tonight, take 5 minutes after our show. Consider joining them on Patreon, helping us stay on the air throughout 2023 and beyond. And as you can see, our long-term goal of $500 per month will allow us to begin attending races on site on a more regular basis, and that expands our coverage for you, the viewers. If you'd rather make a one-time donation, you can visit Buy Me a Coffee. A link to that is also in the description box below. You can buy a coffee for your favorite on-air talent. Any amount will help us continue to grow our motorsports media outlet. Now, looking ahead to our upcoming schedule on Wednesday, don't miss Grid Tonight with Josh, Kobe Lambeth, and Matt White. Of course, you can stay tuned for more Grid Live coverage throughout the weekend, as always. Kobe Lambeth, real quick, my one shining moment goes to ARCA track announcer Charles Crawl. 3 different tracks in 3 different states in 3 straight days. Very busy schedule for him as well. So way to go, Charlie. Brandon, before we sign off, any final thoughts before we wrap up for this evening?
Oh, what's that? You want to pick a winner for Daytona Sunday? Okay. I mean, Saturday. I'm sorry. All right. Let me blindfold you, turn you around 2 times. And here's all the drivers in this hat. Just put your hand in there and pick it out. You'll probably have a better pick by doing that than if you actually think about it and draw an answer. But if certain drivers end up winning, I think X and the entire world may go into Kafritz. But that is all.
I said it yesterday. If Chase Elliott bumps Bubba Wallace out of the playoffs, just stay away from the Facebook comments there. It's probably not where you want to be. I got to tell you, it's just kind of starting to hit me that it could very well be a walk-off into the playoffs for Chase Elliott. And despite the injury, despite the suspension earlier this year, he could be in position to compete for another championship. And I've got very mixed feelings on that. I'll save that for if that scenario actually happens on next week's show. A side note, as we wrap up for tonight, going back home this weekend, take care of some business over there. So I may or may not be on the Sunday wrap-up show. Should certainly be back up here in time for Encore on Monday. So stay tuned for some updates on that. But it's going to be a very wild weekend at Daytona. I guess I'm a little bit disappointed that I saw a tweet from MBM Motorsports before we came on the air. Apparently, they're not going to be able to make the trip to Daytona this year. I know that they had a very strong run, almost pulled off the upset, finishing second last year in this race. So, unfortunately, they're not going to get a chance to go one better this year. But I know they're continuing to fight hard to stay alive and regroup that program and bring the car back out to as many races as they can later this year. So, hopefully, we see them back on the track soon. But a little bit disappointed that they're not going to be at Daytona, but certainly understandable at the same time. For Brandon Crossland, I'm Ben Schneider. Thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful rest of your week.
Thank you for watching us right here on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe and check out some of our other videos, including Life on the Grid, where we interview folks from the motorsports industry. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.